Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Victory Never Sleeps. I am Witan Brandy, and I am joined tonight by Githia's Sheila and Lauren. Thank you, ladies, for coming on with me tonight. First off, how are you doing tonight, Sheila? Oh, you're muted, ma'am. I think you're muted, Miss Sheila. There.
Sorry.
There you
There
go.
we go. I was not aware. Here I was saying technically we were spot on, not quite. Anyway, good evening. We're going to have a wonderful chat tonight. Looking forward to it with two of my favorite ladies in the AFA.
Wonderful. Githia Lauren, it is such a pleasure to be able to call you Githia Lauren.
Yes.
How are you doing tonight, ma'am?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Hi, everybody. I'm usually just in the chat, but here I am.
Awesome.
Great to be here.
Well, we've got a few questions that are already stacking up, and we're going to get to those here in just a little bit. But first, let's get some top of the show stuff. If our producer, Sir Nicholas, could pop up one of our Njordshof updates, let's see how we're doing with our Njordshof payoff. It looks like we are currently at 82.3% paid off for Njordshof. So for those of you who are familiar with the Asatru Folk Assembly and have been to that beautiful Hof, you guys know that we have not had that Hof all too long, and it's through the generosity of our membership and of our leadership and of, the sound fiscal decisions that are made by our Alshaya Godi that we have actually been able to pay off 82.3% of Njordshof. So we do have $43,405 remaining. If everybody, chips in, we can get it paid off right away. And the sooner we do that, the sooner we are on our quest for Frey's Hof. So also, top of the show, GW Farnsworth donated $30 to the VNS fund. Thank you so much, sir. You are here every week donating. We appreciate your generosity. We appreciate all of the things that you do for us. And we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're watching. And thank you so much for your generosity. We do have some upcoming events coming up. If Sir Nicholas could please pop those up. We do have Midsummer at Odenshof. That is going to be June 27th through the 29th. Tickets are available at runestone.org. You can get your tickets there. These two beautiful ladies will be at Odenshof from Midsummer. Come out to Odenshof, meet your folk, meet these ladies, meet Steve and the Alshaya Godi. We would love to have you. We have also got, I believe, tickets on sale for Sigurblot at Sigurheim, July 25th through the 27th. Tickets are also available at runestone.org for that. Come out to Sigurheim and celebrate victory with your folk. And we've also got Freyfaxia Baldershof coming up. Tickets will be coming on sale, I believe, in 2 days. We do those on the 1st of May. So a day or two, those tickets will be up. So Freyfaxia Baldershof will be August 22nd through the 24th. Come see myself and fellow Baldershof leadership as we welcome you and put you through 3 days of wonderfulness at the Temple of Balder. Please bring gear to play in the water with, as it does get very hot at Baldershof during Freyfaxi. And if you would like to volunteer as tribute for the Ice Bucket Challenge and have people bid on buckets to dump water over you, that would be greatly appreciated. So bring something to play in the water with. All right, we have also got Winter Nights coming up in New Hampshire, October 10th through the 12th. Get your tickets now, runestone.org. That is going to be Winter Nights 14, so one of our longest running events. Please get your tickets for that. That is always a great event up in the Northeast. All right. Also, don't forget to follow us on Odyssey, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, VK. There's links in the description here for us. Also, make sure you check us out. If you check us out after the show, you can find us, I believe, on Yeah, there it is. Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon. So whether you're watching it live or where you're listening to us afterwards, we are glad that you're here. We hope you enjoy the show. If you do want to donate to help support Victory Never Sleeps, you can find that at runestone.org/donate. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I love that the producer, Nick, is just prompting me on what it is that we need to go through. He's a miracle worker. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, help us bring our folk home. Also, with the school year starting to run to a close, I know that our academy is gearing up already for the next school year. Contact asatruacademy.org. You can reach out to the dean, Rob Stam. You can also reach out to folk builder Sarah Alt or any of our Runestone staff. Githia McNallen is also involved in the Asatru Academy. She works really hard on that. So thanks to all of those people who work behind the scenes to make that program what it is. If you have any questions for next year's enrollment, please reach out to our staff. Awesome. Well, all right. So tonight, before we get to the questions, kind of want to talk a little bit about what we've got going on tonight. So we are going to be talking about a few of our feminine virtues. The two that we are going to talk about tonight are going to be duty and intuition. And these feminine virtues, I want you to think of, the royal virtue are the noble, 9 noble virtues themselves. We all know what those are. We learn them when we first come to Asatru. Courage, hospitality, honor, truth, discipline, all of those. But there's more. Consider these noble virtues as something for the folk as a whole. And that these other virtues that we talk about, we're talking about some feminine virtues. Think of those as the spiritual feminine identity. Things that are natural to the women, things that make us better people, that make us better mothers, better wives, better sisters, better friends, and better women for our folk and for the gods and our families. So one of the ones we want to talk to you tonight about is duty. What is duty? What is it specifically that is a woman's duty, right? We all know that there's things in our life that we're bound to. We are bound to our families. We are bound to our sisters. And we are bound to our children. And we have a duty to those things that we as women nurture and care for. There are going to be times when duty is not easy. There's going to be times when you would rather do anything but sometimes, right? But duty is a feminine virtue because it is inherent to us. We are built to nurture. We are built to birth children and raise them. We are built to support and defend our families and our men. And that is our duty. We are very naturally emotional creatures. We care a lot. Why were we built to care so much? Why do we throw ourselves so hard into the things that we love? Because it is that innate sense of duty, of responsibility to those things and to those people. Now, for some of us, it's our children, right? For some of us, it's our spouse or our partner. For some of us, it's, promises and words that we've spoken to our friends, our deeds. Some of us have committed our lives to the ICER, to the church. Those are duties. A woman will commit, work for, sacrifice for all of those things that are important to her. Because we were given the ability to care very deeply and to be very committed to those particular things. Not saying that men are not. Remember, we're talking about the ladies. Gentlemen, you've got your own, right? But we're talking about why that would be a feminine duty. Because we were built to care. We were built to work for it and to devote things, money, time, energy, health. We do that naturally. That is a natural feminine trait, right? So I'd like to talk to Githia Sheila and Githia Lauren a little bit about what they feel duty is to them. What is that they personally have committed themselves to? What it is that they care about? What it is they feel a sense of duty for? So Githia Sheila, could we start with you? What is it in your life that makes you feel that sense of duty? What is it that is so important to you?
Now, when I communicate with our members, and that is where a main focus of my life really is in the AFA, I always talk about well-being. And to me, that is, if we can get people to a point where they feel there's comfort, there is wiggle room to make choices, to try harder, to deal with problems, but to overcome. And that is part of my role. It's oftentimes the one-on-one, which I think I'm really kind of best at. Even when I was a teacher, it was kind of the same thing. Not so good in the whole group, but seeing what somebody's needs are. And to me, it is helping people at a time of need, or when they're questioning, or when they're searching. For me, my duty, it has been the AFA, and it will be as long as I live. I'm not going anyplace. And I just have to tell you that it has been very prominent in my life, but how could it not be? Because I'm married to Stephen McNallen and was here, again, people have heard this, but I gave the word folk in the Asatru Folk Assembly, and because it had been Asatru Free Assembly previous to that. And it was all about the folk. And to me, that's where my duty is. Obviously, my duty is to my gods as well. And that we are a church and we are here to honor our gods, to connect with them, and to be better and for our gods, for our folk, and for those ancestors who are looking on, who were just the continuation of that line. So we have a lot of responsibilities when you think of it. We, especially as Githia, because we are taking care of our people, we're honoring our gods, we're honoring our other leaders, taking care of our members and their families. The family it's not just the person whose name is in the database. We're concerned about the families, the spouses, the children, and that's part of our duty too. And I have a situation where somebody just needed to step away from the AFA for a while, needs to kind of get his life in order. But I said, hey, I'm there to help you. And he's not on the, in the database anymore, but that does not end my connection with somebody who could use some support because he's not getting it elsewhere. So that's part of my duty. My duty continues wherever it needs to go, to give help and support to those in need.
Yeah, we do have people sometimes that feel like they need to step away because they feel like they are either inconveniencing us or they're ashamed to face their folk because of what they're facing, or they're embarrassed about their situation, or some of us tend to become hermits when things get hard, And it's so sad to see people walk away, because this is where the support is. Yes, we're going to check on you. Sheila's going to check on you and say, hey, how you doing? Do you want to, are you ready to come back? Let's get this going. Let us help you. But when a member leaves in hard times, you go from having, Sheila, who's always going to be checking on you and to make sure you're okay. But you could have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people there to help you, there to listen to you, there to support you, there to reach a hand down when you need it. None of us are going to kick you when you're down. We're not. because a lot of us have been there. We remember. And you know what? A lot of the time when we were down, do you know who reached out and brought us back up? People here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm always saddened when people leave because it's hard times, because, you know, they think that they're going to be a stressful thing. You know, you're not. Part of, you know, the Baldershof motto, guided by true north, part of that is, you know, finding yourself, finding your gods, finding your ancestors, but also finding your folk. And I believe it says in our write-up about that Asatru has never been, nor will it ever be, a solitary faith. Can you by yourself worship the Aesir? Sure. I'm not going to say that you can't do bloat by yourself, that you can't do ritual by yourself, that you can't honor the ancestors by yourself. Yeah, you can. But when you are together with your folk, that is magnified. You know, think of, and I know I've talked about the folk flame before. You know, imagine the folk flame itself, you know, the spirit and the beauty of our folk in our collective worship of the Aesir. Think of that folk flame as a huge burning bonfire, right? It is a giant fire of faith and piety and worship and gratitude. And every once in a while, when you watch a large bonfire, you'll see a big spark, right? You'll see like something like a firework went off and there's just this big pop. And then you have like all of these sparks, but it doesn't last. It doesn't last. And it's not that the gods don't see that spark of your worship, right? But it's a spark when you could really be part of the flame, the huge bonfire that can be seen, you know, the enduring fire of worship. So yeah, unfortunately, it's sad when that does happen. We hate to see people go, you know, but come back. Come back. Don't be embarrassed about your situation. Let us help you. You know, we're not going to demand to know your life circumstances, but we're here if you need to talk. We're here if you need support. And if this reaches anybody who's just like, I've been hanging around, I've been watching what you're doing, you know, watch VMS, follow the website, and I just really wish I could come back, but I know that I left. What's stopping you? What's stopping you? Email Sheila. She would like to know if you're okay. You know, that is something that is that is a duty she performs, because not because she has to, but because she cares that deeply, that she is committed. She wants you to come home. She wants to know that you're okay. She wants you to rejoin that bonfire. Sparks are great. Bonfires are beautiful, powerful, and enduring. So, yeah. Lauren, can you talk to me a little bit about what's important to you? What is it that you care very, very deeply for, that you feel duty and obligation to take care of, to protect, to work for?
I feel a strong sense of duty to stewardship of our Enengard, of our folk, and our gods. I feel duty towards my ancestors and also the ancestors of all of our people in our church. I feel a duty towards the children of our members, making sure they're okay and they're being guided in a good way, and we're all supporting them. I just feel a lot of duty to my husband. That's really important to me, and to my church, and just making sure that everyone feels like they're connecting to what they need to connect to. And I want to connect, check in with people every month. You might hear from me. We like to check in with people every month, make sure everyone's doing okay, And I'm one of those ones that stepped back from the AFA for a little bit for health reasons, and so I do understand that. So if anyone ever is going through that, as Witan Brandy was talking about, then you can always reach out to me. Hopefully I can help you. So, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. So the next question I have for my Githias, I'm not putting you on a spot, I promise. All right. But when it comes to duty, how do you feel being a woman? How do you enforce is not the correct word. Sorry guys, words are hard for me today. But how do you fulfill that duty as a woman? Like, what do you feel that you do in a feminine way that fulfills your duty? What it is, how do you take that care? How do you make that sacrifice? So if we can let's start with Githia Sheila. How do you fulfill that duty?
I think I have to look at it each and every day and figure out how it's going to be divided into my life, my again, my husband, my life that I have here, the complications of daily living. That's part of my duty, is to make sure that I can continue maintaining so that it doesn't impact in a negative way my church, so that's so much of it. And it is taking care of the quiet times for myself, the things I like to do. A lot of people know I like genealogy, so I sometimes will take time for that for myself in order that I can continue with serving in the way I need to serve. I think I've never had a problem stepping forth and helping people, and that's why doing the food pantry at Odenshoff, which we began, I didn't actually start it, but boy, when it did start, I was right there. It felt so natural to me. And that's, part of my personality, being a teacher for almost 30 years. I like that sense of assisting someone and moving them on in life and providing them the things they need, some of those tools. So, duty at Odenshoff is just pre-planning, making sure everything happens well, stepping back and letting my leaders also shine, make their own decisions. That's something I need to do, because I've got some awesome leaders, but they need to have the space and not have me micromanaging everything, and yet there to give guidance. And so that's some of the things about being a Hofgidia, which I am at Odenshoff. I think that's probably enough right now. Let's see what Lauren says.
Lauren, how do you feel like you fulfill your obligations to your duties as a woman?
Yeah. I think it's I think that we have a really special honor, responsibility to take care of others, and I really do enjoy that. I really love my folk very much, and I love my gods, and I love our church, and I just make sure to find a balance between. I mean, there's you have to find kind of a balance between personal life and everything else, but I mean, our church is our lot. It is our lives. It's not like a side project to us. This is what we do every day, and it's what we care the most about and what we love the most. And so as a woman, I mean, we have these royal virtues that we try to embody, and duty is one of them. And we do that every day with joy and passion, and
So things that I feel that I have a duty to. I have a duty to my relationships, right? My family, partner, my children, right? Those people that I trust, that I love, All of these things. I have a duty to my relationships, right? I also have a duty to my folk, okay? To my people. I have a duty to my gods and my goddesses, to the Aesir and to the Asimir. I am a priestess of the Aesir. That oath carries a duty and take very seriously. You know, I take the duty to my ancestors very seriously. I am a very, very firm believer that our immortality lies in our stories, in our memories, and when someone speaks our name. You know, we're never really gone as long as someone knows we're there, right? And I take that very seriously. You know, my family, my Hoff. So when it comes to Baldur's Hoff, I have a feral duty to Baldur's Hoff. You know, anybody that went through that whole experience with me, you're gonna understand that. You know, the amount of time, the amount of blood literally spilled because we were stepping on nails and you know, smashing our fingers with hammers and dropping things, you know, the literal blood, sweat, tears, and time. You know, I committed to that. And I refused, and to this day still refuse, to let that fall. That will always be a very huge and very important priority and duty for me. You know, but when we start looking at, you know, duty, as a woman, look at it a few different ways. You know, you have your 4 pillars of the Aesir, your ancestors, you know, your folk, yourself. Those are pillars, you guys. If one of those things shake, the other ones are going to hold them up, right? You know, if you're having, you know, health problems and you're struggling on a personal level, your relationship with your folk will help you. You know, if you're having a spiritual crisis, your folk can help you. You can get through that on your own. Your ancestors are there. You know, if you're having trouble connect to your ancestors, you have the Aesir, you have your folk. So look at the areas of your life and see where those duties are. You know, how best do you fulfill that duty to the Aesir? How best do you serve that duty to the folk, to your ancestors and to your family name and to your bloodline? You know, it's your bloodline where your nobility lies, your noble heart that beats that bloodline through. You have a duty to maintain that, you know. You carry the honor of your family with you always, you know. And how is it that I feel like I fulfill my duty, right? How do I act on that sense of duty? Very protective, for one. You know, and I don't mean protective as I'm a man that's going off to war. I mean protective as, if you come to me and Githia McNallen's name is on your lips, it had better be positive and it had better be with reverence. Because even if she's not there, I will make sure it is. Right? I am loyal to those people that I've built those relationships with. I'm loyal to my ancestors by teaching my children about their ancestors, about the trials and tribulations that they went through to get where we are today. You know, I'm loyal to my folk that, you know, I'm going to make sure that I can provide for them spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You know, I can't support everyone, you know, physically. I would love to. But what I can do is support you spiritually, emotionally, mentally. We do what we can to help each other. And that's where I feel like my duty lies. You know, I want to make sure that people are okay and taken care of. If I've ever looked you in the eyes and said, it's okay, no matter what happens, I'm going to be here for you. If I've told you that, I mean it. I will do my best. As long as what you need does not conflict with any oaths that I've taken, I'll do my best for you. Always. Especially for our children. Especially for our children. I get very attached to the kids that come to the Hoff. I know Githia McNallen does as well. I think, Githia Lauren probably does as well. I think all of the Githias have a soft spot in their heart for all of the kids that come to the Hoff, because we see our own littles in those kids, or if we're not mothers ourselves, we have that innate sense of duty to protect and to provide for those kids. Your children will always be able to look to me for help. Always. As if they were, one of my own, because that is a duty I take seriously. Our children need to be cared for and protected and cherished. They're our future. I feel a sense of duty to our future. All right. So I think before we get into intuition, Sheila, do you have anything to add on that before we get into intuition, or any other questions?
Not really. No, I love how you summarized that. I think we all agree. Truly, there have been times where we've had almost no children at our gatherings or at our Hoffs. Just a few, and maybe they were just kind of passing through with the family and didn't really stay. Sometimes we had a few families that did stay, come in as young children, even infants, and grow through the AFA, but not very many of those. It's not like today. So what's wonderful is that when we're hosting events at Odenshoff, we're to a point where for every 2 adults, we have 1 child. So typically we'll have 40 adults and 20 kids. And that's pretty amazing. Of all ages, we have truly from infants to teens. And there's a challenge in that. And I haven't quite figured out how to deal with it, because my goal is to make sure that each and every child connects, understands why we're there, and it grows with our church and understands its purpose in their lives, and how it is something that will always be there for them, should that be the life that they choose. And going in, then we will always be there for them. But it is wonderful watching our little kids come with their parents and then immediately run off with their friends, who they almost consider like cousins. Those relationships are so close, and you can see it in the pictures that are taken at events. The kids are often holding hands. Lauren wrote an article this month about Hexanoct, and there was a sweet picture of the children's symbol, which we often will do. Sometimes it's bloat, but I think the symbol is much easier for them to understand the purpose of it, how to conduct it with us. And just when you see those little 2 and 3-year-olds already with a horn and making a toast and taking that draft, it just makes your heart go pitter patter. And it's the beginning. It's there, and the seed has been planted by those of us who've been doing it. And I hope that they grow up and always know who we are and how much we love them and wish to take care of them. Parents, as we all know, things happen in life, and sometimes families separate for different reasons. Parents are sometimes not there for the kids, and I don't know, maybe we can somehow still play a role in their lives should that happen to any of these children. That would be my goal, that at least they can come back later on and say, do you remember me? Of course we remember you. And we want you with us. You're still family. That's going back to the idea that we welcome people into our family, but we also welcome your families into our family, and the spouses and the children. And that is the way we want to do it. So.
All right, so we do have a couple questions before we go into intuition. We're going to go ahead and answer those. So we did have one question that was emailed in, and that came from Tyler. And it says, hey there, question for the show this week. I was reading the True Logmal and was reading that the AFA believes what the AFA believes about the soul. It's interesting how you divide it into various parts, but some of them seem to overlap, and I was wondering if you could explain the various portions. Specifically, what's the difference between the ek and the soul as individual identity? These sound similar to me, but perhaps there's a nuance I'm not picking up. Also, is the Filkia an ancestor, a deity, or something else? Thank you for always taking these questions. It's very much appreciated. All right, let's talk about the soul. All right. So we have the 9 different parts of the soul. So we have, I don't know if our producer could find the link for the previous VNS episode. That would be really great if you could link that, Nick, so that we have a reference, because I believe there's a whole VNS episode covering the soul, and it's great. It's with Witan Swan in the Ashiragothi. So please take a look at that. So it is great, but I am going to cover those 9 parts just very briefly and see if we can talk a little bit about the differences that you specifically asked about. So, we do have the lead, which is like the physical body, right? That is, and I'm going to keep this pretty short because we could spend the rest of VNS tonight talking about the soul. We don't want to do that. I mean, maybe we do. How long these ladies got here? There we go. Yep. There's a cool picture. I think, was that drawn by Witan Swan? I think it was.
It was.
Fantastic. So if you could find that link and maybe drop it in the chat on YouTube so that people could reference that and go back later, because that's a really good episode. So if you want to go pretty deep into that, we can do that. But, you've got your leak, which is going to be your physical body. We've got the ek, which is one of the questions you have, and that is like the self or the ego, right? That is like your primal being, your instinctual self, right? That's your ego, right? It's the easiest way to put it in regards to the differences we're going to talk about, right? It would be like more like a primal instinctual self, right? Your Huger, or your mind, is going to be your logical side. It's the side that thinks. It's the side that looks with reason, that looks with logic, Your mini is going to be memory. That's going to be the memories that you carry with you, the things that you remember. So I'm going to throw a little bit of me in here. It's also those instincts that you have, your blood memory, right? It's all those things. It's a lot of this is where, intuition, gut instincts, memories, and things come from on there. But that's going to be memory. Okay. And then we got the owned, and that is going to be the spirit or breath. That's going to be like our divine breath that was gifted to us by Odin, Billion Bear, when we had that. The Hammer is it's the appearance that you project, right? So people kind of get a little bit different with this one, where versus, your physical body or the projection of the body. Let's be 100% honest here. Who you are when you're alone is not who you are when you're with other people. Some people will argue, nope, I'm the same person either way. No, you're not. No, you're not. You have a projection of strength sometimes that may not be real. It's a projection. You might be terrified, right? But you are projecting that strength and courage. That's the projection of the self. It's how you project yourself outwardly. And then we have the soul, which is the fundamental individual identity. Okay, and we are taking this from the True Logmal, which also, producer Nick, if you could drop that link as well, that would be fantastic. We have the Haminya, the accumulated luck, right? And then we do have the Filkia, which is one of the questions you had as well, which is the protective guardian that watches over a person or a family. So let's talk about it. So you have your physical body, right? You have your projection, your leak and your hammer. So similarly, You are going to have your ego, and you're going to have your spiritual individual identity. So one of the things that I talk about, and that's some of this is where some of these, these virtues, these feminine virtues that we're talking about, right? That is a feminine spiritual identity. Now, I am a member of the folk. It is my birthright to worship the Aesir as a member of the folk, right? But some of the things I want you to pick up on are also, who are you as a mother? Spiritually. What is a spiritual mother? Right? What is a spiritual sister? Are they the same thing? A spiritual woman can be many things. A spiritual woman can be a daughter. Okay? It can be a sister. It can be your friend. It can be your wife. It can be a mother. It can be an aunt, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, or a Disir. It's part of your spiritual identity, right? And those will change and grow throughout your life, not only as you mature in age, but as you mature in your spirituality. So I know the ladies on this call have been doing Asatru a long time, as long as me, if not longer, right? Are you the same spiritual person that you were when you first found Asatru? I'll tell you what, I'm not. I have grown and learned and connected and built relationships and worked so very hard to fix myself in order to fix my spirit. Okay. So I hope that this is making sense and that I'm taking the difference and showing the difference between the nuanced parts of a spiritual identity, a spiritual self, and just your, the ego. Okay. You grow as a spiritual person, and Asatru, and I preach this a lot. Asatru is just not Havamal quotes and Viking memes. Okay, it's not just a warrior spirit and women, barefoot and pregnant at a moot. That's not Asatru. Okay, Asatru is worship. It is growth. It is finding and making yourself a better person physically. First of all, physically, pushing yourself to be always better, to be better than you were yesterday, to overcome any obstacle that you have, to not let your illness, for example, dominate whether or not you worship your gods that day. Growing spiritually, growing that spiritual foundation and that spiritual might. It's a muscle. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. But Asatru makes you better physically. It makes you better emotionally. You learn a sense of control when you learn the virtues. As you read the lore, and that's a whole nother conversation we're not going to get too deep into at the moment. But as you read the lore and you discover how to apply the lore to your modern life, you find lessons in there that help you mature, that help you understand, that help you be a better man or woman, right? And Asatru will help you mature mentally. It will help you overcome all of the demons in your head if you put in the work and make that happen. Somebody constantly telling you that you're not man enough, that you're not woman enough, that you are worthless, that you don't deserve to have a wife or a family, that you don't deserve to whatever. All of that is a mental block. That is you letting somebody else determine your worth. That is in your head. And then you find Asatru and you realize worth is determined by your people, your Inengard. Right? It will help you if you let it. And then it will develop you spiritually. You finding the gods is step number 1. You reading all 33 of the books listed on the recommended reading is step 2. You finding your self-worth, your strength, and how to build a relationship with the gods, step 3. That's your spiritual identity. It's your spiritual might. It's me as a spiritual woman. Our ladies as spiritual women, our men as spiritual men. A spiritual husband that leads his wife to the gods. A spiritual grandfather that speaks to his grandchildren about, Thor's hammer and teaches his grandson that the gods exist. It is you helping your sister find courage, right? It is you being there, extending hospitality to your friend, taking her in when she leaves an abusive relationship. Those things are spiritual. We don't think that sometimes. But when we apply our spirituality to every aspect of our life, we build our spiritual might. We build our soul. Anything to add on that, Githia McNallen?
Yeah, I was thinking it in terms of like a reservoir. I feel like I can always go in and pull out in me now that I never used to have, but there is substance in there. It has mass, can move, it can flow out. And I have so much more confidence than when I knew nothing when I came to Asatru. I just wanted to be a helper, right? I wanted to help produce the runestone and things like that. And yeah, I'm still growing. I wish I were younger. I wish I was in my 40s and could go back to that, and with especially the wonderful people we have with us now to learn with, to share ideas and share experiences. But it's okay. I'm here, and I have a place. I know my place. I see my place at Odenshof as a daughter of Frigg, and how could I not? Because I'm married to a man who has followed Odin his whole life. And again, Odin made that happen. The fact that we had that one Hof that ended up being Odin's Hof, all of it was not meant to be, but it happened because it was ordained by the higher powers to make that happen and bring us to where we are today, this point today. Everybody who's listening in, you're here for a reason. Take from it and know that there is so much to gain from being in the AFA. That's where the frustration is when people live far away and they don't make any effort at trying to connect with others, whether they're their nearest neighbors or somebody who's half a world away but online. And it's not ideal, but it is more than nothing. And we're sometimes so much closer with each other. In fact, we all feel that this is family. And I think most of us feel stronger connections with our AFA kin often than we do with our neighbors, our coworkers, or even our personal families. And there's sadness, but not everybody does. And thank goodness and blessings to you who can balance it all and have kept family close. But it doesn't always happen. And it's just so important to continue growing and be involved. When you have the chance to attend a moot, even if it's 3 people, engage there, talk with them, and then come up with a plan. Let's keep this going. Don't let it die out. It was a spark, a tiny little spark of a few people, but it can grow and grow your area and all those things that we try to do, but we can't do it when we're not there. But if you're there, take on that little role, and you're going to find that you grow through that one experience. Being with those 2 or 3 people will be life-changing if you choose it to be that way. Take some responsibility and some charge in it and continue connecting to the holy powers, to the gods and goddesses, to the Aesir, and come up with some wonderful experiences that you can share together and grow together. That's all. I could go on, as you know.
We could talk about this all night.
Indeed.
I said we're going to keep this as briefly. I know this is a question, not the topic of the night, but Githia Lauren, do you have anything that you would like to add about the questions about the soul or anything that we talked about there?
I just wanted to bring up that Whitton Daniel Young wrote a really wonderful series of articles for the Runestone about the parts of the soul, and I've really enjoyed reading those when he puts one of those out. I think some of them are available on runestone.org and at the other Hoff sites. So I would encourage everyone to, if you haven't read those, to go and check those out because they're really wonderful.
They are.
He's about halfway through them, and they're spread out throughout they're spread out throughout a bunch of different rune stones. But I think probably once he finishes, I might just compile them into one so somebody can find them in one place.
That would be wonderful. We appreciate the work you do on the behind the scenes, Nick, to make things easy for us to find. But if you do want to find those right now before he does put those into a compilation, go to runestone.org/library. So all of our Runestone articles, let's talk about the library for a minute. All right. So the runestone.org, under library, you've got all of the Runestones, all of them. And when I say all of them, I am super proud that there's a lot of them in there because we worked for a very, very, very long time to find older versions we didn't have. So everything is in there, and you can literally see the evolution, not just of the AFA, but of Asatru. You see the whole evolution, from the time that Odin woke up Founder McNowan until today. You can see this beautiful evolution and growth. And we were talking about spiritual might a little bit ago and how it builds over time, and you exercise that muscle and you become more mature and you become more aware, and your relationships with your gods deepen and your relationships with your folk deepen, and then it turns into something so much bigger, so much deeper. That well gets so much deeper, and you can see that in reading the runestones. Plus you get to see all the cool things that we're doing. I mean, we have moots every week in the AFA. There's something going on. Like the sun does not set on the AFA. There's always something happening. You can see all the things going on at the Hoff, so take a look at the runestones. Go in there. If you are interested in writing something to the runestone, whether it's like a recipe, if you want to submit family recipes, we will take them and we will cook them. We'll make them and bring them to the Hoff. If you want to submit some kind of game or puzzle that you think would spiritually, be intriguing for your folk to do it. Submit it to us. If you have something that you want to write about, your personal relationship and how that developed and the trials that you went through and how you built that, submit that. If you have beautiful artwork, if you're an artist, if you paint or you draw or you write poetry, submit that. Help us build and help us show that spiritual might that we're building. We would love for members to do that. We would love for that. It's more than just leadership telling you about upcoming events. The Runestone is more than a bulletin board, you guys. It's a catalog of our history, right? And it's showing the growth, the spiritual might. It is showing how bright that bonfire I talked about earlier really shines. Be part of it. Help spin that spiritual wheel. Grab a spoke and push it forward with the rest of us. So producer Nick has got the email there. So if you are interested in submitting to the Runestone, press at runestone.org. Please do. Send us pictures. Send us pictures of your family on a day of remembrance. Let us know what you did. Show people that you're there, that you're here, and that we're worshiping the gods together. All right. All right, so we do have one more question that I'm going to try to answer quickly, but it may not be a quick answer, and then we'll get into intuition. So, yeah. Let's see. This one comes from Sierra. It says, Witan Fassett. I often find ladies who take issue with stanza 84 of the Havamal. How do I explain the importance of this quote to our people? The trust no maid, trust no word of a maid. You know what, Sierra? I have often been asked by women who are critical of this or are triggered by this, and we're gonna talk about it. A man shall not trust the oath of a maid, nor the word of a woman speaks, for their hearts on a whirling wheel were fashioned, and fickle their breasts were formed. Let's talk about it. First of all, what's a maid? What's a maid? Does that say one shall not trust the oath of his wife? Does it say that? No. What's a maid?
Okay, could I just?
Yeah.
To me, so much of the Havamal is written for young men, as children, young men the age of your children, Brandy, where they're getting ready to head off into the world, and we do know that they're going to be beguiled by ladies who are going to be very lovely, going to have their perfume on, going to sweet talk them. And it can happen. Doesn't mean all of them will. And they will come back and they will find that lovely girl living next door, maybe, or maybe at their local Asatru church. But yeah, men will. Yes, I think it's a warning because we know, especially our ladies in the AFA are not going to do that, but a lot of other ladies will. And so that's one way. We don't want to be those ladies who take advantage of innocent men and put them at risk for anything and heartbreak or anything. So that's kind of the way I look at it. But I'd be interested in hearing yours and Lauren's ideas too.
Yep. So I build these things called lore webs. And if we want to see Witan Fassett build a lore web, you better start commenting, because I'm not going to do it if you're not paying attention. So start commenting in that YouTube chat for me. Tell me what you think of this particular Havamal quote, and we will build a lore web. Okay? But chat, we need to see some activity in that chat. First of all, tell me what you think of this Havamal quote. Tell me what you think it means. Be honest, it's okay. But we're going to build a lore web out of this. So the first thing that we see in there is it says, a man shall not trust the oath of a maid. All right. So first, Githia, Lauren, what is a maid? Can you tell us what a maid's going to be?
Generally, a younger unmarried woman. You know, not your wife, not your girlfriend, not your sister. You know, I mean, or mother. It's a very kind of particular category, I think, that we're addressing here with maid, phrasing it like that. So, yeah. Not as experienced in the world, you know, maybe a little bit fickle, you know. I think we all,
Little bit fickle. So let's break that first line down real quick. A man shall not trust the oath of a maid. It does not say your mom. It does not say your wife. It does not say your sister. It does not say your daughter. Is your daughter a maiden? Probably, but she's your daughter. Careful though, right? Women, especially young women, and this goes back to where we started, why we feel like such a sense of duty. What did we start that conversation with? We are built to be highly emotional because high emotions cause attachment. We are emotionally driven. Indeed. When we are young, We are also hormonally driven. True story. I have never come across a self-aware woman that has done the work and she has not gone back and said, I was a hot mess. 15 to 25, that age range might be different for everybody. I am self-aware enough that I know I was foolish, I was immature, I was unpleasable. There was nothing you could do right. I would always find fault in it. I was fickle with my emotions and my attention. I am self-aware enough and honest enough to say, yes, I was a maid at one point in time. Absolutely. Was I malicious? No, I wasn't. But did my world revolve around me and my emotions? Absolutely. Absolutely. And for a woman who's emotional, and I'm going to throw this over at the other Gethias as well. When you are in a high emotional state and you are fixated on somebody that did you wrong, do you see the whole truth or do you see your truth? Okay, now amplify that by being a naturally emotional creature. Okay. Now, this is where it gets dangerous. And it says, a man shall not trust the oath of a maid, right? Nor the word a woman speaks. For their hearts on a whirling wheel were fashioned, and fickle their breasts were formed. I want you to think about this. A young man trusts the oath of a maid who only sees her truth. The truth is somewhere in her truth. Okay? But when you are self-absorbed and over-emotional and you see your truth, that becomes that young man's truth because you are his entire world. That man will move mountains for you. Women determine worth. I'll say it again. Women determine worth. If a woman finds worth in something, the men take notice, right? If he can be her knight in shining armor and gain worth, he will. Young men, you are not off the hook because you have a tendency to go ahead and rush into things and be that knight in shining armor. Intentionally and with purpose and with gusto, good for you. But be careful because you're seeing her truth. Or if this is a woman who does not have your best interest in mind, she's making you see a truth that's no truth at all. Men will be foolish for women all day, every day. So let's break this down. When we look at this, we're going to build a lore web. When we look at this particular stanza, how can this stanza influence positively or negatively the folk? What impact can this stanza have on the folk? Think about that. Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. How can this stanza in this instance influence the folk in a positive or a negative way? I'll give you a minute to think about it. Right? It's there. How can the folk be harmed or made better by this stanza? Now, think about this again. How can this stanza itself affect our ancestors? Not as easy of a question to answer, but there's an answer. How can this affect our ancestors? How can this affect our families, our lineage, and our future? Our ancestors in our future descendants? What kind of impact can that have on a family? Put it in the chat. Now, how can this affect the Aesir? Ooh, now that's a more complicated question, isn't it? It's a more complicated question. We'll talk about it. But how can that affect the Aesir? Good or bad? And how can that affect you personally? Right? Let's build a web. How can it affect me personally? Okay? I'm going to hit this at two different angles because I'm a mom. I'm a mom. I'm not just a mom, I'm a boy mom, right? Legos and dinosaurs. I'm a boy mom. As a mother, this is a genuine concern of mine. And for all the feminists out there who want to come at me, bro. Women are not always sound of mind or judgment or truthful. And I have two young men that I feel I need to prepare and protect from those who do not have their best interest in heart, or for those who might use them as a knight in shining armor. That's real. Right? So as a mother, I feel that personally. But also as that woman who was once a silly maid, I had to come to terms with why I was silly. Right? If you are a woman who is personally triggered by this quote, I want you to ask yourself why. If you are personally triggered, is it because you have done this to someone? Have you made that misstep? And does it trigger you because you're embarrassed about it or ashamed of it? If you are embarrassed or ashamed of it, fix it. Fix it. Come to terms with it. If you can make it right, make it right. Because let's be honest, forgiveness is never guaranteed. Forgiveness is not necessary, but making it right is. Okay? Fix it. Fix yourself. Remember, we had a conversation earlier about how Asatru can make you a better person if you let it. Why does this trigger you? Ask yourself the question and be honest. One of the things that I find when people do spiritual work like this is they lie to themselves because it makes them feel better. You will never grow as a spiritual human being if you continue to lie to yourself. Ladies, fix it. Okay? So that's for me personally. So I've been talking quite a bit, so I'm going to move this over to Githia McNallen. I'm going to ask her a question. And Githia McNallen, how can this particular Havamal quote affect our folk in general, good or bad? I think you're muted, ma'am.
There we go. I'm muted. Well, I am that woman. I was at 17. I had a goal. It was not well founded. I ended up doing right by it and making good. But yeah, I realize very much because I have not stepped back and looked at that. But yeah, I think you're right. 15 to 25, you're just finding yourself as you go into womanhood. And some people may go off to college. For me, I wanted to settle down and have get married and have a family. It was me, because I didn't have a solid childhood. I was orphaned. So I was always looking for that person who could, my knight, literally my knight. And, I kind of started out abusing the relationship. I took advantage, and that was horrible. And in the end, it worked out. I grew, and because I'm the kind of person I throw myself into it for eventually the right reasons. As I grew, it was for the right reasons. It just, there was just such immaturity. So we need to watch our young people, be aware as parents, or, try to guide both the men and the women, to, first of all, be friends. Don't rush into relationships, because that is what happens. The people will make commitments, the idea of oathing with the "I love you," and who can deny that? That's a very powerful 3 words. We don't want that for our people who are not ready for it, and it can certainly cause problems. And we've run into that with even older adults who have taken advantage of the trust of the folk and done things that brought great harm within local groups, kindred groups, and ultimately the AFA and families. And it is, it's one reason to pull our women together and let them understand from the time that they are young adults, maybe even teens, to be part of the women's groups and to understand that honor is expected in your relationship with others, including young men. Be good to them. Treat them like they're your brother, like you love your brothers, as you should. Maybe not always, but you need to respect. And so I guess that's it for us as women in dealing with women. And that's what we do. In dealing with men, that's often left to the men of our folk to do that. But I think there's also a role for the women to do that. We see something happen, and a young man is getting kind of wooed by some maid and is going the wrong direction in it, and may very well, as we know, what happens often, pregnancy and marriage, and those things don't last so often, and it's just was never done for the right reasons. And so we want people to develop relationships before they get that intimate with each other, meet, like each other, share things, and we try to support that. Healthy relationships. That is not what we read would not make for a healthy relationships. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Now think of the strife that can be caused by something like this quote. You can have 2 men that are best friends, and a woman comes in, and all of a sudden they're not friends anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because all she did was make an accusation that may or may not have been founded. Right?
Yep.
Women will purposely incite jealousy for their own. What is the right word on that? Young women are known to incite jealousy. Not necessarily for amusement, but for fulfillment, because they need to feel wanted. Because there's a reason that they do not feel wanted in their life. If you're that woman, again, fix it. You need to be able to identify why. Ask yourself the hard question and tell yourself the truth. Right? So also with this one, we were talking about how can this affect the ancestors, our future descendants, right? So Githia Lauren, how do you think that this could negatively impact honor of families or integrity of families?
Well, I suppose if you took this too literally, you might be tempted to not trust women, to not honor your female ancestors, perhaps. If you did not trust women, that would be pretty dangerous for our people. I think it's just really important to point out that, I mean, the Hafmal also, warns people to not trust men, like for women to not trust men, and for people to don't trust your son, don't trust this, don't trust that. It's all about being careful. Like it's not saying stay away from women or stay away from people. It's saying, just like when it talks about, not shunning the horn, but to drink in moderation, to drink in measure. It's with these things, with people, it's saying be careful with people. Don't put all your trust into people. Just drink in moderation, trust in moderation. It's really important we can fixate on the woman part of it, but I mean, the Hafmal has so much about how much joy we can find with people, with other people. It's not about staying away from people. It's just about being careful.
Right.
Having moderation in our dealings with people and how much we trust people, everyone, not just women and men. And so, yeah.
And how can that affect our families? Like, how can that affect us, historically, and for those in the future, if we don't do that correctly? How can that hurt our families?
Yeah, I mean, not having trust, it can really sow discord in a family and in a community, and it's really important for men and women to trust each other. There's just so much going on these days where they don't trust each other, and we need that. We need men and women to trust each other. We're our greatest allies, and we really need to love each other and support each other and trust each other.
Yeah.
Be careful, but we need to rely on each other.
And that's why I definitely wanted to point out, it doesn't say don't trust your mother. It doesn't say don't trust your wife. It doesn't say don't trust your sister.
Yeah.
It says don't trust a random lady that you met at the bar on a Friday night who said she loves you. Round three.
Comes back to me. A word we use a lot is boundaries. Nowadays, it's kind of a modern term, but it's true. We need to keep boundaries around ourselves. And that goes back to the soul complex. Take charge of ourselves and not let bad influences. And we do see mistakes made by young men and women that they're carrying with them to the AFA and having to deal with mistakes made earlier in life. If we can head that off with our young people, of course, we need to do that best we can. Try to educate them in what our true values are and why the folk are important, and to not disrespect our ancestral lines, our bloodlines, by having children with others, because that is not the way we honor our ancestors. And we are, in fact, our ancestors, but let's not be them in a more inferior form. We want to be better. We want to be the best we can be, not an inferior aspect of our ancestors. So, and the modern world calls for that. So we have to be vigilant with our young people. So actually I'm getting so much out of this and thinking about it myself, but great conversation.
Yeah. Well, let's build another ring of the web. Well, I don't know. Do you guys want to build another ring of the web? I mean, we're not done. We'll keep going. There's a whole nother ring to this web if we want.
So, are there any more questions from the people out there?
I don't think we've got any more questions. They're quiet tonight.
They are quiet.
Indeed.
We'll leave it to Sierra, though. She's always got good.
Well, I can talk about this for a while. I can build this web for a while. So let's build the web some more. Let's look at one of the runes. Let's take Let's take Wunyo. We all mostly understand on a personal level and a general level what Wunyo means. So think of Wunyo. So Lauren, could you tell us a little bit about what Wunyo means when you work with Wunyo? What does Wunyo mean for you?
I think above all else, it means joy to me. Joy, fulfillment, success in something. A lot of runes can mean success, but Wunyo is like the happiness of fulfilling a goal or a dream. The joy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, Nick, can you pop that Havamal quote back up there for me? Can we apply Wunyo positively, negatively, neutrally to this? To the joy of our community, to fulfillment, to love, to success. How does Wunyo work into this particular Havamal quote? How does it affect it? How does it affect Wunyo? In turn, how can Wunyo affect? How can Wunyo influence this situation? I'm not going to make it easy. Put it in the chat, people. Think about it. Like, think about it. Build the web. Remember that we are modern people in modern times. We are not living in the Viking Age. When all of these things were originally written, we are learning understanding of the lore and understanding of our spiritual selves in a modern age, right? So think about this, guys. How do you put Wunyo into this situation? How does Wunyo affect this Havamal quote? And what kind of instance in this Havamal quote affects the spirit of Wunyo, right? So think about that. That's another ring of that web. How do the runes apply to that? How about Hoglaws? Hoglaws would be a good one, wouldn't it? That would fit pretty well in there. Pretty obvious, right? Yeah. Build the web. The lore is really, really great. I mean, look at several translations of the lore. You'll find something different. Look at, the meaning of the words themselves that were specifically chosen for that, and you'll find the meaning in there, right? But also apply things to it and see. Yeah. So let's build it again. We're not going to take an easy one like truth. Let's, Githia McNallen, give us one of the 9 noble virtues. Any one of them, throw them at me. Throw one at me. You're muted, ma'am.
Mute. How about discipline?
Discipline. Oh, yes. That's a good one. Let's apply discipline to the Havamal quote, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's it going to take? So some of us may get a little bit overexcited. And I'm gonna take this one from a feminine aspect. I might get a little bit emotional and overexcited. Okay. And I might call one of my girlfriends, and I might be a little overexcited, and I might be a little over-emotional, and I might be a little bit over-focused. And I might only see my truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we bounce things off of our friends. And sometimes we have to bounce things off of our friends because I will recognize that I can get over emotional, that I might only see my truth at that time. So I might call Mandy or my friend Heather, right? My friend Anna, my friend Lauren, my friend Sheila. Tell me about myself, please. Am I overreacting? To have the discipline to check myself before I wreck myself. Because I could very possibly make a real big mess of that situation if I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because my heart is on a whirling wheel. And fickle was my breast formed. checking myself before I'm wrecking myself. That requires what? Discipline.
Discipline.
Right.
Self-control.
Self-control. All right. Build it one more time and then I'll stop, I promise. How does this look in the case of mental health? How can this affect your mental health and your mental well-being? As a man or a woman, right? This can wreck you. This right here, right, backwards, forwards, this thing, right? Yeah, you know what I mean? That thing, that can wreck you. That can not only wreck the maid, that can wreck the man in here. We talked earlier about the self-worth, right? Like, use Asatru to find your self-worth. It's there. This can destroy you up here. It's where it comes in. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Not good looking enough. No matter what I did for her, it wasn't enough. This can affect your mental health. How do you combat that? It can affect your emotional health. We have got young men out there, young white men who hate women. We see it every day. And I'm not saying this is like it's an epidemic and we need to like freak out because there's men that hate women. But there are men who are very unhappy because this is the kind of stuff that they face. Right? You can destroy a man the first time he falls in love with this kind of thing. And he will never be emotionally well again. You can have a woman become addicted to the thrill of this, the attention seeking. See it all the time. Let me post myself in a bikini on Facebook or TikTok because that will fulfill me emotionally for a minute. And I'll tell them anything that they need to hear as long as just to keep their attention. Because we're seeking endorphins through this artificial form. And we expect that constant gratification in our lives. And become emotionally broken and stunted. Now look at the physical well-being of it, right? The physical health. How can this affect your physical health? Your physical well-being? Well, this one's easy. Like, let's say he trusts the word of a maid that he shouldn't have, and then he goes into a bar and he gets in a fight and he gets a glass shoved into his cheek and he has to get like 20 stitches. Obvious, right? Right? Now, how about your spiritual health? And I'm going to bring this up specifically because I've seen it happen more than once. A man and a woman meet in the church. And they get together. And they're both dedicated and fulfilled. Well, all of a sudden, she doesn't want to do this anymore because this takes up too much of his time. Too much of his attention that should be spent elsewhere. And she's constantly picking. And they leave. I have seen men leave Asatru in general to pacify a woman, to turn their back on the gods themselves to make a woman happy. Spiritual endangerment. Spiritual manipulation. Right? And then we can look at this on the feminine, the masculine side, right? Like, what kind of feminine lesson is this? Ladies, use caution with your words and your deeds because your words and your deeds hold significant power and authority. Use them wisely. Be truthful. Don't be malicious. And men, guard your heart sometimes. Realize that sometimes when we are yelling and screaming, we don't want you to go out and punch a guy in the face. We just want you to listen. Right? Yeah. That's a Laura Webb. That was fun. All right. So we've been on here for quite some time, so we probably should get to our next topic, guys. All right. So let's talk about intuition. Intuition as a feminine virtue. So I'm going to pass this one over to Githia Lauren. If she can tell us a little bit about what she feels intuition is and how that applies to femininity. How do you feel that as a woman?
Right. Well, I mean, we've all heard of the women's intuition. So that's definitely, I mean, women with intuition, it's definitely like a virtue that our ancestors really respected. You know, the seeresses in Germanic culture, to our ancestors, or were figures to be respected. So women that could harness that power of and virtue of intuition were highly valued. Right. Intuition, it's really, you know, we can really, like, we can stop harm from happening if we can kind of have a sense of something that's going to happen. If we can harness that, we can really do a lot of good in the world, as women, for our families and for our faith community, for our folk. So, yeah.
What about you, Githia Sheila? What do you feel about intuition? And what do you feel about feminine intuition? What do you think that is? How does that work?
You know, I think it's interesting that all of us, have learned the soul components as adults. But you go back to it, and we have the philia, and it's almost like we have a person, somehow there's some knowledge that comes to us that feels right, and we respond to that, and that is our intuition. And is that coming from our philia? Maybe there's always our philia who's been with us from birth, who is just kind of feeding that to us, and maybe that philia changes over time. But I think that we use it for the best good. I'm thinking in terms of our roles as priestesses, but I think generally speaking, it can make us feel very self-righteous because we tend to believe, we stand very firm in what our intuition tells us. It's like it is a gift that comes to us, and we're resolute oftentimes in our feminine intuition. And perhaps that is why we can be contrary or contradictory or argumentative, is when we just have this idea that our words matter. This has to be done now. It's the right thing to do. And I don't know if men have that. I just know that I've had it. I've had it most of my life. And I work with that a lot. In fact, that tends to be how I tend to get myself into my predicaments, is because I tend to not rationalize as much as I probably should. And I go with my instincts. But it's also what makes me the person I am. And I love the person I am. So yeah, there's some things I change, but I still think that intuition is very, very powerful for us women to use. I think it helps us come together and work together, because we understand what the purpose is. We come together in a group, and to nurture the relationships and all those kinds of things. To be aware when something needs to happen. And that's, again, it kind of goes back to the idea of the vulvas and all that. And I think it's something we have lost. In fact, I was going to write an article one time saying how much we seem to have lost the idea of the vulva. And yet, and I forget where I was going to take it, but I felt that there were still other things we do to compensate for that in the modern world. But anyway, it's all something to continue to ponder, though. And I feel that, yeah, women's intuition is a beautiful gift. We need to make the most of it, use it wisely, and not try to upset people by pushing something that may not have validity to it. But we don't know until after the deed is done, in a way. So it depends what we're even talking about, of course.
Oh, yes.
I'll back off.
We can do a whole show just on intuition.
Yes, we
We've
can.
done a whole show just on duty, But, intuitions, when you look at this, a mother's intuition, a wife's intuition, So think of like a time that you were worried about one of your kids because you just knew that there was something wrong. And then there was really something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Women's intuition, it is said that you instinctively, is that the right word? You instinctively, words are hard for me today. I apologize. You instinctively judge someone within a second of meeting them. You do. You judge them immediately. Immediately. You have to for survival instinct, right? And then you get to know a person and that those ideas will change a little bit. But I don't know what the actual statistic was because I was reading about this a long time ago, but the actual statistic is in the end, it might have been days later, it might have been years later. But your first instinct is almost always right. Almost always right. And I think that as women, we feel that a little bit stronger because we don't have to judge just for ourselves. For example, when we are pregnant, we automatically become, looking for the survival of not just ourselves, but our child. And when we give birth to that child, that does not go away. This ties in with duty here. It is your instinct to protect that child, and you will use your intuition to do that. Have you ever just known when your kid's up to no good? Yeah. Gets a little too quiet, and that instinct kicks in, and you've got to go find the toddler because it's been quiet for 5 minutes and you know something's wrong. Or when you just know that there is something hurting the soul of your child, like something has happened and they won't talk about it, but there is something wrong. They don't seem to be acting any different, but it's just the way they hold their head. Right? You instinctively know. You intuitively know there's something wrong. Right? By the way they hold their head. By how much food they ate that day. Your intuition kicks in. And it could just be, you're observing people and it's just body language. Okay, sure, you're observing those things, but what's putting those things together, right? What's stringing these things together? What's tying them together? What is looking in the well and finding these little glimpses and nuggets and plucking them out and going, this is the problem? We instinctively know what's good for our people. What's good for our relationships. What's good for our children. We have the ability to know what's safe and what's not. The reason this is more feminine than masculine is because men are more reactive, right? A man is more bound to take everything as a threat because to some men, everything's a threat. If you are a veteran who has served somewhere overseas, everything becomes a threat, right? But you are also more into that reactive, protective nature where a woman is making a decision, right? Are we hunkering down or are we running today? Are we taking 5 kids and hunkering down or are we running? What are we doing? Fight or flight? We are the smaller. We are the physically weaker. We have to make those decisions quicker. And I feel like the women have a better sense of intuition. Now, when we say that this is a feminine virtue, this doesn't say that men are not intuitive. They are. It's just hardwired in us a little bit stronger. You know? Can you think of a time when you just knew something without knowing? I mean, I don't know how many times you guys have heard me say this. Like, I just know because I know. And I turn out to be right. Not always. I don't have a perfect track record. I don't think anybody does. But think of a time when you just knew and you were right. Lauren, do you have any examples or any kind of experiences with a time that you just knew and you were right?
Yeah, I've had feelings with people in my family that I'm close to that something was wrong, and that something was just wrong, and so I call them up and something is wrong. So it's just, when you know, when you know, you know. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
What about you, Githia, Sheila? Have you had a time where you just knew and you were right?
Yeah, it is really an interesting form of communication, isn't it? It's what really does just come to us. And wherever it materializes, it's so very clear when the time comes that we have to rely on that. Yeah, I can think of numerous times because I rely on my intuition a lot. I'm aware of it. And I think we do it more than men. I know I do it more than my husband does. It's just not his nature to use intuition at all. It's like it's all throughout my day that I'm making decisions based on those kinds of things. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not at a point where I can come up with a specific, but I think there are lots in people's lives. But yeah, it's fascinating the way it comes to us. It just reveals to us without even, it's instantaneous that something needs to be acted on or something. And one thing is when we talk about people, that goes back to the Hamar, right, where the physical presence, so you meet somebody and the essence of who they are comes across to you, and as you say, you pick it up in the first few minutes of what a person's like, and that judgment is often spot on of what the person is going to be like if they remain in your life. You may not know details about them, but and again, that's that even instantaneous attraction that people may have when they see each other for the first time and just know that that's the person they want to be with. And that's intuition, and it's sometimes not to be denied. People just, you read about the old people married for 70 years, but they knew it the moment they met, kind of stuff.
Absolutely. You just know.
Also,
people just know things, you just, and I've seen you do that, Sheila, where you'll look at somebody and there's like an instant trust. And you're like, yep, you're one of us.
I feel that with people, and I have other people tell me the person is not what they come across, and I will stand by that person. I can tell when I've got a good person. I can tell from a phone call, generally speaking. Yeah, they come anyway. I use my intuition a lot with people. Yeah, I forget what I was about to say though. Anyway,
one of our other Githias, Githia Heather Young, is very good at this. Very, very good at this. So Githia Young, she always knows when there's something wrong. She doesn't know what it is necessarily, but she knows. And she always says that she smells cigarette smoke and roses. And when she smells it, I have to call Brandy, there's something wrong. She has called me out of the blue in the middle of the night on a random Sunday afternoon. What's wrong? What's going on? She knows. And it's not just me she can do it with. No, she's amazing. She's got that intuition. She may not be able to pin it down on what exactly is going on, but dang it, she's got that scratch that she feels. She feels that there is some kind of disturbance in the force, and she needs to know what's going on.
Yeah, to go back to that, I started out talking about the philia. On the other hand, it could just be the ancestral stream that is there and gives us deeper knowledge of what's really going on with people that maybe we've had connections with previously in past lives. I mean, we just don't even know all the dynamics that are possible there. But yeah, I think, and I know that we take this into ritual. I mean, we will do things intuitively that just feel right. And, sometimes I will do a ritual at my bloat where people will take a rune at the end that is well blessed. We've gone through, we've blessed it with the mead and everything, and it's understood. And the runes that come up are always the right one for that right person. The woman who's in her early pregnancy with Ingwas or Berkano and all those kinds of things that happen. And like the pieces fall into place when you make some decisions and they're the right ones. And yeah, and I think we as Giddias see that a lot when we're doing our own rituals.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to answer Corey's question first because it's relevant to the topic that we're talking about here. Corey asks, sometimes I think my intuition gives me false red flags. How can you balance listening intuition and not being overreactive? So one of the things that I always recommend is to try to develop your intuition versus react to your intuition. Okay. So sometimes, and this is one of the things when you start trying to hone this skill in particular, because there's a few things that I always recommend women do when they're trying to hone the skill of intuition. And those things are drink water, lots of water. Your body is fluid, right? What is the well made of? Water. Okay. Where did Odin throw his eye in order to gain that wisdom? In the well. What's in the well? Water. Drink water, ladies. If you have not had your water today, drink your water. Hydrate. There you go. Drink your water. But also journal. Okay. So when you have these intuitive hits, whether it is dreaming is a type of, divination, but it's your intuition speaking to you sometimes, right? Keep track of your dreams. Do you see things before they happen, or do you get hints of things before they happen? Do you have like this intuitive hit going, hey, you need to watch something? Write it down. Also recognize what's accurate and what's not, right? So sometimes you just have this knowing. You just know. Sometimes you might have like this flash, like this image, and you see this image and you just know everything there is to know about this image. What it smelled like, what day it was. There's a whole background and a whole 20-page history of this image in your head, right? Write it down, right? Don't be afraid to write these things down, and don't be afraid to keep track of your success and failures, because you will start learning the difference between trusting your intuition and reacting out of a fear-based thought. A lot of the times when we talk about intuition, we talk about things that are going wrong, premonitions of things going wrong, right? That is most often what we talk about, right? Because that's a strong fear-based thing. So one of the things I always talk to women when you're trying to develop your intuition, keep track of your success and failure, but keep track of how you feel. Okay. When I know something's going to happen, that, for example, while I'm driving and the palms of my hands in particular start to tingle, that's unusual for me. I routinely will experience tingling in my fingers and down the side of my arm, right, with my illness. But the palms of my hands in particular, I have never had an issue with. And all of a sudden it'll feel, and it's not like they're fell asleep. It's like somebody's digging into my palms. Okay. And I'll be like, whoa, okay, so I'm going to slow the car down, put my seatbelt on, because I'm notorious for not wearing your seatbelt. Don't be like Witan Brandy, wear your dang seatbelt. Do as I say, not as I do. But I'll slow the car down, and then a deer will jump in front of the road. Right? Things like that. And that started after my grandparents died. So that could be the intuition. It could be my grandmother. Because when, grandma wanted to get my attention because I was being dumb, what do you think she did? Smack my hand. So I relate it very much to that, But pay attention to stuff like that. So if I get that feeling in my hands, I will instantly slow down, look around, what's going on. Because for me, it's like a warning system. Is it accurate 100% of the time? Absolutely not. Does something happen every single time that my hands tingle like that? No. But has it made me slow my car down from, 90 to 50 before? Yes. Did a deer jump out in front of the road? Yes. Would I have hit that deer at 90 miles an hour? Absolutely. So I trust it whether it's happening or not, because that's a sign for me. But that is after trying to pick that apart and go, what does this mean? Actively trying to find out what it means. But journal. Keep track of your success and failure. Also, we talked earlier about Asatru will make you a better human being, right? You have to acknowledge your triggers and you have to be honest with yourself. Because your trauma, your insecurity will trigger what you believe is an intuitive response to something. This goes back to fix it, right? So you have to be able to address any kind of trauma that you've experienced and be aware of what your natural trigger is and what your natural response will be so that it does not inhibit or influence your intuition. So Corey, I'm not sure if I answered your question. Githia Lauren, Githia Sheila, do you have any kind of recommendations on that? Any recommendations for Corey on that at all? Oh, also Whitton Swan wants me to talk to them about the ghost woman I ran into with the yellow handbag. I just see that in the chat. Yes, I will do that, Whitton Swan. So this is really strange. This is at my last place of employment. I went to the restroom. I came out of the restroom. And when I opened the door and went to go, run out to the desk, I stopped, like dead stopped, because I almost ran over this itty bitty little gray haired lady with a yellow purse, right? And like, she went like this. And I went, you're not real. You're not real. I saw her, I stopped, I panicked. I thought I was going to run over an old woman. Like I felt like a horrible human being. And I went, you're not here. I went to see if we had cameras in that hallway because we had cameras in the building. Is there a camera in this hallway? Because even if it's not on camera, you were going to see the most hilarious reaction you've ever seen ever from me. Like literally, it was like if I had been a cat, I would have jumped 15 feet in the air. So I started talking about this little old lady that I almost ran over. And comes to find out, they're like, so her husband owned the place. He's still here too. They think it was the previous owner's wife. And they hear him upstairs all the time in his old office where he used to go hide. And I explained her in detail, and they pulled up an obituary, and they didn't tell me about this entirely. But I got a phone call at work from one of her children the next day and asked about what was she wearing, and I explained it. And he goes, is there anything in particular you can tell me about that? And I was like, the purse, the yellow purse, the handbag that she just... And he choked a little bit, and he goes, that was the one thing that she asked for Christmas every year. It was a new handbag. Yellow. So those kind of things happen, right? They happen. And, he of course asked the questions about, do you think she needs anything? No, I think she was just going out to the shop. And I just almost run her over, No, I don't think she needs anything. She didn't seem like she was in danger, I just almost ran her over. But that's where she used to go out to the shop. That was the door she went out of. So those things are real, guys. Pay attention to them. Because also, don't be ashamed of them, because you will never know who needs to hear something, right? Like, have you guys ever had something that pops in your head and you're like, I just have to say it? Like a stumble toast, for example. Like, I don't know why I need to tell the story, but I'm going to tell the story. And you do. I have told a story at Stumble about, the patriarch of our family was thrown in an irrigation ditch and left to die, right? And I told that story about Stumble, about, how he survived. And he's the patriarch of a family that's huge, hundreds, thousands of us. And I always say, don't ever forget how important one life can be. And I've told that story, and I only tell it when I feel the need to tell it. But I've told that story, and I've had people come up to me and say, I was honestly contemplating suicide. Like, I came here to say goodbye. I wasn't going to say goodbye, but this is my last hoorah. Just wanted to come to an event before I did it. As a woman, always trust that you know what your people need. And if you feel the need to share something, say something, or walk up to a person and compliment them, or just let them know that you're here. Or if you feel the need to call somebody, like, I don't know why I need to call this person, but I'm going to do it. Do it. You never know when that intuition might save somebody's life. Yeah.
I'd like to just say that the lady with the red yellow handbag reached out to you. I mean, it changed your life. You're telling us, it's affecting us and how we look at this.
Right.
She didn't have to appear to everybody, but she appeared to you. So consider that a gift. In the Eldry calls, or McNallen's Pub, you guys know that Steve and I do those. We often will talk about the paranormal type of events that have happened in life. And they're such teaching tools for us. Why were we the people who had that experience? What does it mean? Where does it go from here? Kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I think we'd all like to develop more of that. I know that despite being very Irish, I don't really have the gift like a lot of people do. But I would love to have more of it. And so again, my intuition is good, but I'm not, going back to intuition when we're doing bloat, I'm very aware of the surroundings and change of wind and change of light and all those things. And I make note of them. And that is some of the effect of doing bloat for me, and then hearing from others. But sometimes we'll see things in the fire, and pictures are taken that have mysterious lights or smoke or whatever. And it's fascinating when that happens. And some pick it up and others don't. We're also individualized that way with what we have. But I would like to think that we can all develop the gift more. They always say we can. And that is something that, again, all the water. I'll be drinking more water now, Brandy. And writing my journal.
Yep. Just remember, what are you looking into? The well. What's in the well? Water.
I totally get that.
Yep. Finn Wraith has a question. Do you think one can learn to improve their intuition, or is it something one has or they don't have? Okay, so my personal thought on this is everybody has this to one degree or another, right? You all have that. At the most basic level of yourself, you have the fight or flight instinct, where your instinct is run or fight. That is the most basic level. If your fight or flight mechanism is broken or you don't have one, maybe you don't have the intuition, but at your most basic level, that's your most basic level of intuition and instinct, right? Intuition is learning to listen to your instincts and take the lead and develop communication with your instincts, right? That's what that is. So yes, I do believe everybody has the ability to some level. Differences would be, like I said, I personally believe women have a stronger knack for it, but that does not mean that a man cannot be too highly intuitive. And it does not make him less masculine if he's highly intuitive, right? I'm just saying it's something that is just overwhelmingly present in a spiritual female. Yeah, I think everybody has it. Whether or not you cultivate it is entirely up to you. Whether or not you hone it is entirely up to you. Yeah. All right. And then we do have another question on this one. And it is from, oh, there's a kitty. Hi, kitty.
This is Runa.
Hi, Runa. All right, so we've got a question from White Horse Asatru. Tacitus spoke of Manus as ancestor. In the Eddas, he disappeared. However, Odin and Heimdall are ancestral gods, ? Did one or both take over Manus's ancestor and first priest aspects? Okay, so those that are Tacitus experts, correct me in the chat if I am wrong. Write something in the chat anyway. What are you doing? If you're just sitting here listening to us for ASMR to go to bed, I'm going to call every single one of you later and wake you up. All right, so put it in the chat. But I do think that Tacitus is the only actual historical reference we have of that. There have been other people who have written about him. But I think Tacitus might be the only actual person who is written that that's a thing. And that he had 3 or 4 sons that were kings of various tribes. But as far as being a divine aspect on that one, he's not in the Eddas, right? However, Odin and Heimdall are ancestral gods, ? Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the gifts that you've been given by the gods. That's where we're going to start with that. So, the very first gifts that we were given were by the gods Odin, Vili, and Ve. The 3 brothers gave us 3 gifts. And what were they? Right? What were they? Breath. Right? What's the other one? Movement. Thought and reason. Right? That was the first gift from the divine. Odin, Vili, Ve took us from nothing to something. Okay? The next time we were blessed and gifted was from Rick. 3 times. While Odin, Vili, and Ve gave us life as we know it, the basics of life, Rig gave us our nobility. It is through Rig that we have become the noble people that we are and how we are linked to them as our most ancient ancestors, right? He came to us 3 times, and every time Rig blessed us and our folk became more noble. We were gifted again by Odin with the runes when he made that sacrifice. But who gave the runes to us? Was it Odin? Who was it? Think of your lore. Who passed that on to Jarl and Carl? Or passed it on to Carl? Or Jarl? It's been a long day, I apologize. Who passed those runes on? To the people. So we've been gifted many, many, many times. So yes. Did one or both take over Manus's? It's supposed to be ancestor and first priest aspects. Yeah. So he's not in the Eddas, he's not in the Eddas. And I think the only place he pops up is Tacitus. And if we've got an academia nut in the chat, please correct me if I'm wrong.
At least me reading Wikipedia, you're not. It's just Tacitus. There's a few like scholars that think he's connected to like Midas and Manu
but in reality, though, I mean, if you look at this from a pan-Aryan perspective, this is all made of the same tree, right? This is all made of the same tree. They're all interconnected. They all represent that greater spirituality of the folk. But yes, talking about the gifts of Odin and Heimdall. All right, and Ron Boardman asks, ladies, for each of you, what is the first thing you evaluate on as a true man on? Besides his beard, of course. It's from Ron Boardman. So I'm going to ask Lauren, other than his beard, what is the first thing that you evaluate an as a true man on?
I notice kind of a sense of reliability, I think, pretty quick with men. Just whether I can trust them at their word, what things like that. Whether just reliability. Yeah.
What about you, Sheila? Tell us how you evaluated that as a true man of yours.
Oh, well, I guess in just meeting men in general, for meeting anybody, it's eye contact and smile. And if it's not there, that lets me know that it's going to be more on me to reach out and find out a little bit more about that person. But it does say something if somebody comes in and they're kind of have an open presence about them. So you can kind of see it in the face and the way they approach. And also if they hold back because they're probably socially uncomfortable. That happens all the time at the Hof when people meet us. And we have to expect that and then just give them time. Give them time to find something that they can talk about and be comfortable with. But there are all sorts of ways of evaluating men and women. But we have a lot of men that come to the Hof. So we get a lot of experience, Lauren and I.
Yes. I'm going to put this out here. If you are a white, noble woman of any age, doesn't matter if you're 18 or 65, if you are looking for a solid, reliable, most of them are bearded, as a true man, we have got a healthy lake stocked with prize fish. I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm just going to throw it out there. And everybody always asks, how do I meet a good man? Come to church. Come to church. We acknowledge physical excellence. We encourage financial excellence. We are spiritual and pious and community oriented. They're all straight, ladies. I promise all the men in the church are straight. You don't have to worry about weeding them out. How easier can it be? Come shoot fish in a barrel. Come meet a man with Asatru. So if you are a single white lady looking for some menfolk, come on over. We've got straight men here for you. Bring your sisters if they're looking for one as well. They're always like, everybody's like, I don't know how to meet a woman. Or my friends are like, I can't find a good man. I know hundreds of them. Where are you at? If you want somebody who shares a community values, traditional families, traditional gender roles where you don't have to compete with him, come check out Asatru and come to church. Just saying. You don't have to worry. All of them are straight, we promise. It's not a joke. It's like a literal requirement. So you're good. All right. So what do I evaluate from our men? Honestly, when I meet a man, one of two things is going to happen. I look at you and I put you into a box. And I want you guys to understand, like, I'm being open and honest with you. Right? So am I going to mother you or not? That is the very first instinctual thing that I am going to judge you. Am I going to have to mother you or not? If I have to mother you, that's all you're ever going to be, is one of my kids. And this didn't matter when I was 21 or now when I'm, what year is it? 2025, 44, right? 21, I had the same thing. I judged men based on, do I need to take care of them or can they take care of me? Real talk, guys. If I have to mother you, you'll never be anything but my kid. And I will always see you that way. You might be 60 years old and I might be 75 and I'll still see you as one of my kids if you give off that I need you to mother me. And don't get me wrong, I will mother the hell out of you. I will be there for you. I will support you. I will guide you. I will mother you if that's what you need. But then you're always going to be a kid. That's the first thing I evaluate. I could say something else and something easier and something that you guys want to hear, but I'm going to give you the truth. Do I have to be your mom or not? And I will act accordingly. But again, put yourself in the box, All right. Looks like we do have one more question tonight, guys. And it is from Witan Swan. He says, I am a big believer in cultivating a relationship with the divine. Do you have any special at-home prayers or bloat to do with any of the maidens of Fensaler? I'm going to give that over to Githia Lauren first. Could you walk us through how you cultivate your relationship with the maidens of Fensaler?
I just did a small bloat the other day to Ayer because the goddess of healing, just because I've been struggling with a monster flu this month. and I found that she's quite easy to talk to. And just to check in with her and just ask for her blessings on me. And my husband was struggling with the flu a little bit too. So I just wanted to do some special prayers to her to just for healing and for recovery. And yeah, so but I would like to deepen my relationship with the other maidens. And that's one of my things I would like to improve on. Because there are so many, and they're all just so special in their own ways. So, yeah, I'd like to do more of that.
What about you, Githia McNallen? Do you have anything you'd like to share about how you cultivate your relationship with the maidens of Fensaler?
Yeah, well, I've always had a close relationship with Gevian due to Charming of the Plow. And this has been a very, very special experience for me, doing bloat and drawing in her energy, which I've always done when I've done bloat. And I think of her and her role and what is said about her and being the caretaker of the maidens who pass and need to go to a hall, and they go to her. But that's always been a goddess that I particularly connect with. What Steve and I do most mornings is what we're calling, actually, and thanks to Brody Sutherland, is the Valkyrie's prayer, which is hail to the day, hail to the sunset day, the way we do it. A lot of people see us do it. We do it at Odenshoff every Saturday morning, bring everybody out facing the sun and do that beautiful prayer to start the day. And of course, it ends with healing hands. And that is so important to me. I mean, healing the folk. If we could all every day find somebody in some way to heal, and it could just be a smile. It could be getting a shopping cart for someone, or opening a door, or calling a friend or a mother or grandmother. Staying in touch, it's that healing nature that we have the power to do, and we overlook it. And we should all make it a point of doing that. That will make us better people. That is the honorable thing to do, to personally involve. As I have to agree with Lauren, I could full for her being a helpmate of Frigg, but I really have not done specialized bloat to the Maidens of Rensselaer. And it's something that I need to. I think I will set that up as a standard practice of my life, and see where that takes me.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go.
So I do have specific, prayers and things that I do for each one. So some of you may not know, but I write terrible poetry, right? And I've turned them into prayers. So me and my terrible poetry, that is my gift for the Maidens of Rensselaer, but also for the other Aesir as well. It's part of my daily devotion to greet the day with a prayer. And, sometimes it's 10 minutes. I would prefer it to be 20, but sitting in reverence for that, that house or that house union. Some of the things that I want to do, I would not call it meditation for a reason, because meditating is like a squirrel holding still. I'm not good at it, and the littlest thing will make me be like, there's a nut over there that I need to go get and bury. Like, doesn't work. But what does work for me is active meditation, is the chanting of mantras, or prayers, or the singing of the runes repeatedly. That will help me focus, right? So going through like a runic sequence, for example, over and over and over and over and over. I'm not keeping track of how many times I do it. I set timers. I set a timer. If I've got 10 minutes, I do 10 minutes. I would prefer 20. But go over different rune sequences that you associate with one of the Maidens of Rensselaer, right? Pick 3. If you're really good at it and you practice this, you can get 9, right? Do 9 runes in a sequence. But it becomes habit. It keeps you active because you want your mind active, because what do you see? Do you see her? What does she look like? Do you see something that's supposed to represent her, right? So when I do this, I will see things like, let's say Sif, for example. It may not necessarily say Sif herself, and I've actually shared this mini vision with a couple other members of the church, but you see a woman walking through a wheat field with her hands trailing across the heads of the wheat, with long, beautiful golden hair. Just that vision, just that beauty of it. Understanding that our world is good, and that we are fertile, and our land is fertile, and we should give thanks for that. Gold can have a lot of meanings, right? Gold, everybody always anticipates gold to greed, right? Don't be so negative about it. How about prosperity? How about abundance? How about a field that is literally a gold wave of something that can put bread on your table and feed your family? So different things. I have different prayers, but you can do 3 or 9, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you're good at, but sit down and think about it. You know what I mean? Just because I use this one, and this one doesn't mean you do. You might have an understanding of Wunyo that I don't have. You might have an understanding of Fehu that I don't have, right? But when we were building the web earlier, remember? Relate the rune to this. How does the rune affect that? And how does this situation affect the rune? Think about that. Put it in regards to the energy that you feel from the maidens of Fensal. Think about it. What do they mean to you? We know what they generally are in charge of, but think of the gifts that mean something to you, right? Let's take any of them. Sauga, for example. Sauga can be a lot of things to a lot of ladies and to a lot of our menfolk. Generally speaking, she is the keeper of the things and of the knowledge and of the stories, right? You know, she sits upon the banks and she listens to Odin. And she pours him mead into a golden chalice, right? There's a few different ways to look at that. Okay? Sauga number 1 is sitting next to a stream on a bank. When you think of stream, what do you think? Water. But what kind of water? Is it peaceful? Is it clean? Is it pure? Right? For me personally, it's peace and tranquility. The golden or the green banks, the healthy grass, the bank itself, right? I see that as like a lush, a lush field of comfort, right? Fresh, but healthy. It doesn't say she's sitting in a bank full of mud and rocks, right? Like, no. It's healthy and vibrant. So we've got 2 things there already: tranquil, peace, health and vibrance, right? So what can that tell us about Sauga? Right? Good things. And what is she doing? She's listening. She's listening. What is she listening for? Someone has to keep the history. Someone has to remember the deeds. How many times have you been like, I have to write this down, I have to say this before I forget it? Saga's the one that's listening to us, right? She's the one listening to Odin. Now think of this as well. She is serving Odin. What does that mean? And I can't give you the answers, you guys. I'm giving you my own answers, right? She's not only listening to him, she's serving him. Why? Why? For the wives out there, for the partners, the girlfriends, the partners, the wives. When your man is telling you about his day, what are you doing? Should be listening. If he came home and he had a great day or a not so great day, he wants to tell who? He wants to tell you. Why? You are his peace and tranquility. You are also his vibrance and emotional and mental health. You are listening, right? But you are also serving. You are serving him peace. You might be giving him a beer if you are good for you. He probably wants one. That's great. If he doesn't drink, give him an iced tea. Right? Comfort. Peace. Let him lay the burden down. A man needs a confidant. Does it say in there that Saga is telling him all about himself and what decisions he made that day? No. What is she being? It's confidant. Yes, she's recording the histories. Absolutely. Vital. She's also listening to listen and giving him peace. Right? How many of you can do that as a sister? Do you have to be a wife to do that? No. Absolutely not. Can women do that for each other? How many of you have got on the phone and said, guess who called me today? Right? And you might be her peace, or you might amp her up, but she might just need that peace. You're being that confidant. You're also remembering for her. Because when she falls in love with them again, you're the one that's going to remind her, hey girl, remember 2 months ago when this happened? Don't tell me you're not gonna. You're gonna remind her. It's what you do as a friend. Right? There is so much more to our Asenir than one paragraph of the Gylfaginning. But you'll never find it if you don't look for it. Right? Flex that spiritual muscle. All right. Let's see. Who else has got in the chat? Oh, Nick asks, how does one go from treating this as some club or organization and truly diving into the faith and community of an actual church? Let's start with Githia McNallen on that. I'm going to read it one more time because it's kind of a paragraph. How does one go from some club or organization and truly diving into the faith and community of an actual church? Githia McNallen.
It's interesting to hear when people come to us what they're looking for. And sometimes they just want that community, and they're not searching for the church. And we hope that if we do our job well, if we instill enough spiritual might and connection during the days when they're at our church, at Odin, of course, that's where I go when I start talking about this. One hopes that they will realize, no, this is so much more that I was not expecting. We have realized at Odenshof that we were amiss in not doing Summel regularly. We have, a full weekend with people, but I know that the other Hofs, they kind of encapsulate it with a bloat and a Summel right together, and they get a lot done. And because we have an acreage, people spread out. It's hard to pull them back in for talks and various things. We don't have we do have a single building, but still people spread out. And with that, we haven't really set the parameters that we needed to for a really spiritual day. And now that we're finding that people say, wow, this is so cool. It was such great, doing the Summel. People were leaving without experiencing a Summel. You have to do bloat and you have to do Summel because that gives the full picture on how we come together as a folk community. And you really, if you don't stay for both, if you don't experience both, you're not really going to begin understanding how we connect with the holy powers, with the Aesir. And I have a fellow who recently joined us, came to the Hof, and didn't stick around for anything of a spiritual nature. He just said when he came in, he didn't just pick up the vibes. Maybe you could at Baldershof or Thorshof, especially because they're former churches and they have that ambiance, the shadows and the tall spires and all that. it's hard at Odenshoff, and it's probably a bit hard at Njordshof in a way as well. You know, you've got to give it time. It doesn't just come, just doesn't hit you forcefully the first time. But he left because he said there was nothing spiritual for him. And it really made me sad. And he wrote with regrets, but he was not going to come back and try it further and just say, no, this sometimes it may come to you and you just know this is what we do. This is why we do it. And it's a very impactful personal religious experience to be with others, to do bloat, gathering at a pizza place. Yeah, you're probably not going to feel it. You're going to enjoy some good people, but if you could make it to a Hof or go someplace where people are actually hosting an event where there is a bloat and food blessings and maybe a baby naming, that takes it way into being a church and not an organization. We used to use the word organization for too long, so we kind of when Steve and I were running the AFA, it was a religious organization. We held off on calling it a church. But even I would end up saying later on that, well, church goes back to the Greek and it's circa and it's, everything to, all the variations of that being a circle. And that's, I've always said to people, that's what our ancestors did. They gather in a circle in the woods. They do their religious places. And same thing with God being our word, not a Latinate word. They took that too. So it's fine to use the word church. It's fine to use the word God or gods or goth, even as we do. And it's really important for people to see that. Give it time. If you have not felt that, it will grow in time with you. Some people feel it initially, but people come to us for all sorts of reasons, and they're trying to find connection and community. And community with the Aesir is what we hope they'll always find.
Thank you, ma'am. And it looks like we do have one last question for the night here, and it is from Sierra. Why is it important for women to step up to be folk builders, then grow to be Githyas? Lauren, would you like to take the last question for the evening?
Sure. Well, I think it's just really important to have a balance of men and women in our church, and I feel like men and women both bring something different, very different, and very special to whatever they're bringing that to, and so we need to have enough women folk builders to balance out our wonderful men folk builders who are doing a wonderful job. And we have a new folk builder apprentice folk builder in Odenshof, by the way. So wonderful. That's fun. Yeah. So, and then to grow to be Githyas, well, of course, we have a duty to pass on our faith to the next generation, to the children of the folk, to the folk who haven't come home to Asatru yet. We have a duty to pass that on, and so that really helps if you can really dive into it and do that. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to reach out and talk to us about it.
Outstanding. Anybody who is interested in joining the ranks of leadership, if you feel a calling and a duty to serve your gods and your folk, please reach out to Gothi Nathan Erlandson. He is our folk builder coordinator, and he can fill you in on that. If you do not necessarily, we said it was the last question, so they're coming in, ladies. If you do not feel comfortable being leadership, or you don't feel like it is the right thing for you, please reach out if you still want to volunteer, because we do have several opportunities for you to volunteer as just a member. So please reach out, even if you're not leadership. We definitely have ways you can help. All right, so we do have two more questions. Sierra asked, Somersault question, Thorshof and Njordshof have singles dance around the maypoles and then couples after that at Njordshof. Is there a reason for just the singles to dance around and not everyone? So I am going to invite Whitton Swan to speak on Thorshof specifically in the chat, because I know he's lurking in there. But typically, maypoles were actually danced by singles. That's traditional. We don't necessarily do that all the time now because we don't. It's a good problem to have. We don't have a ton of single people a lot. You know, we pair up pretty quick in the church. You know what I mean? So we don't always have a lot of singles. You know, we might have the young ladies, we might have some single men, but traditionally it was the singles. Fun fact, if I have mentored in any way a Gothi or a Githia, they do have my very special maypole blessing. So that maypole blessing includes a 9-tiered knot, and there's a very specific prayer that goes over those knots. And I am not exaggerating. And the last people to take all those maypole ribbons last year, you know who you are. Don't let me down. Mm-hmm. Everyone who has taken an end of that maypole ribbon since we started doing the maypole at Baldershof has been blessed with a beautiful child within 2 years. Every single person, man and woman, because we had men that took the ends of that maypole ribbon as well, weren't even in a relationship yet, but they wanted a wife and child. And by golly, they got one. We are not exaggerating. This is real. So for those of you who took all of the maypole ribbons last year, do not mess up my class record. But it's true. But they do have that very special blessing. I did pass it down to people that I have mentored, so hopefully that can continue. Corey says, worked for her. Dang right it did, Corey. Well done. All right. And then Finn Wraith asks, how do you celebrate May Day? In a lot of places here in Europe, it's a big celebration. Is it a celebration over there? Yes. May Day is a fantastic holiday. May Day includes feasting, flower crowns, dancing, frolicking in the clover, doing the maypole. May Day is very much, of course, a fertility ritual, right? The phallic symbol of the maypole, the dancing around the maypole, blessing our women and our men with fertility and health and vitality. You can take it into an agricultural state where we're requesting fertility to grow, reaching up into the sky and bringing the rains down to pour down upon our fields so that not just our women are fertile, but also our fields to feed those beautiful babies. There's so many beautiful things about May Day, beautiful, magical things about May Day. It is a big celebration. If you are in an area where you can attend a Hof, you can find those celebrations the third Saturdays of the month. And if the good producer could please pop up all of those websites for all of our Hofs, that would be amazing. So find a Hof near you or reach out to any of our folk builders and they can get you situated. Not only are we celebrating May Day at the Hofs, but we are celebrating May Day in those far-flung areas that are kind of, separated from not separated is not the right word, but a little bit further than the Hof than people are able to drive for a day. So we do have May Day celebrations all around the country. If you go to runestone.org and take a look at the calendar or go to any of these websites and look at their calendars, you'll be able to see where all of those May Day celebrations are. Hope that answered your question, sir. All right.
I'd like to just add something.
Go ahead, Sheila.
Okay, I was just going to say, a lot of people wait until the national event that is held at each of the Hofs. Every Hof has one, our 4 Hofs plus Sigerheim, and those are usually the 4th weekend of the month. Otherwise, it's the 3rd weekend when we celebrate at every Hof. We celebrate these holy days. But I want to say, don't wait until a national event. If you can get on a plane, and sometimes the flights are really cheap, get on a flight and come up and experience it. And we really don't want you to wait. Come this time. May Day is a wonderful time to celebrate with folk. We've got the beautiful colored ribbons, and we're dancing around, and it's springtime, and ladies with hair wreaths with flowers and fine feasting, all that. It's a wonderful time to come and meet folk for the first time. So I encourage you, no matter where you live, figure out, even if it's not your own Hoff district, if you're out in Louisiana and you can fly up to Minnesota really cheap, do it, or come out to fly into Sacramento and come to Odenshoff. We'd love to have you come out. Just come experience what it's like being with a large group of people who are very committed to celebrating together, to honoring the Aesir, and making the world a better place through all of our efforts. So we want you to come out. So there we go. May Day is wonderful for that.
May Day is a great event. Yes. Well, that looks like those are all the questions that we have tonight. We have covered duty. We have covered intuition. I have jumped down about 26 different rabbit holes tonight. It's been a lot of fun. I want to thank Githia McNallen and Githia Anderson. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you ladies joining me. Look forward to doing this again soon. Until next week, same time, same place. So hail the Aesir, hail the folk, hail the AFA, and remember, victory never sleeps.